So today we're diving into chapter 2, which is about structures and frameworks. Okay, so before we're going to start, I'd like to share a quote, which is the quote is get the thinking right first, and then the rest is detail. So I share this quote because this quote perfectly captures why frameworks are so essential in our field. Okay, think about it. Without the proper mental models, even the most well-funded project can feel like navigating through fog. So in this chapter, we will explore three critical principles. So the first one is that structures and frameworks are absolutely necessary for constructing mental models of complex human activities. The second is that we will develop frameworks that already exist that work exceptionally well for making sense of projects. And the third one is that we can effectively describe the managerial challenge by assessing project complexity. Okay? So by the end of our session, you will be able to describe the challenging environment projects that operates in, use basic frameworks to identify project elements, and assess managerial complexity and its implications. So, we will also examine the high level frameworks like the 5 Cs model. We will dive into activity models, including the 4D approach, and we will explore how to evaluate project complexity using tools like the MODIST framework. And remember, the goal isn't just to learn these frameworks, but it is to develop the thinking patterns that will serve you throughout your project management career. Okay? So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so now let us examine the heart of project management, which is the 4D model. So this framework provides a systematic approach to managing projects from conception to completion and beyond. So kindly look at your screen. At the top, we start by making sense of the project context through introduction. Okay? Next is structures and frameworks. Next is understanding projects within organizations. So this foundational thinking sets the stage for everything that follows. Now, I want you to remember the 4D cycle because we will be repeating this throughout the SEM. Okay? So let's begin with D1. So the D1, or what we call the defining it, or the defining stage of your project. So where we are going to identify who are your stakeholders, we will develop strategy and establish success criteria through initial planning. And this is also where we answer the fundamental questions: what are we doing and why are we doing this? Okay, so the next comes the D2, or what we call the design it. So this is the detailed planning phase covering the time planning, rethinking approach, cost and benefit analysis, stakeholder engagement, and risk management. So here we determine how well achieve our objectives, or how well did we achieve our objectives. No. Here we determine how we will achieve our objectives. Okay? So the third one is the D3. So in the D3, this is what we call the do it. In the doing it stage, this is actually the execution phase where we focus on project project organization, team structures, management and leadership, control systems, supply chain coordination, as well as the problem solving. So this is where our plans becomes into reality. Okay? I mean, this is where our plans become reality. Then finally is the D4 stage, or what we call the develop it. So this is the stage where often the most overlooked phase in every project. So it involves project completion, the review, improving future performance. Okay, so this learning loop prevents the hedgehog syndrome, where organizations repeat the same mistakes. So now I want you to notice how this isn't just linear. Okay, so there is a continuous feedback between phases. So from D1, D2, D3, and D4. So making it a dynamic, adaptive framework for project success. Okay, so let me outline what we will accomplish in today's session. So by the end of this class, you should be able to do three things. Okay, remember this. First, you will understand how to introduce and explain various frameworks that help us manage and analyze projects effectively. Next, we will explore several powerful tools, including the 5Cs model, which helps us understand external influences and project dynamics. And second, we will examine the PESTEL analysis. Okay? So what is PESTEL? That's political, economic, social, technical, environmental, and legal factors. And this framework is really essential for analyzing the external environment that your projects operate within. And finally, we will cover three critical frameworks for managing the projects in competitive and complex environments. So what are these frameworks? The first one is the 7S framework. The second one, we will discuss the ICOM model. And the last one is, of course, what I have introduced in the first part, which is the 4D project life cycle. So I want you to think of this as your project management toolkit. So it with different lenses through which you can view, understand, and successfully navigate the complexity of real-world projects. So remember, these aren't just the theoretical concepts. They are practical tools that you're going to use throughout, of course, first with your company study, and then in the future throughout your career to make sense of complex project environments, and of course to deliver successful outcomes. Okay? So now let us begin with understanding why frameworks matter in the first place. Okay, so now let us talk about the external and internal conditions. So that directly impact how your projects are well planned, executed, and delivered. So understanding these factors is really crucial because they shape the challenges, opportunities, and strategies your project team must consider. So today's project environment is fundamentally different from what it was even a decade ago. Okay? So first, projects have become increasingly competitive and complex. So you are no longer just managing the tasks of your team or your project, you are navigating intricate stakeholder networks, technological dependencies, and market pressures. Okay? So second, time has emerged as a major source of competitive advantage. Whether you are building a road, developing a software, or launching a project, speed to market can make or break your project's success. So the third is there is there's been a dramatic shift toward increased customer focus. Okay, so modern customers don't just want their requirements met, But the modern customers, they expect you to exceed their expectations and deliver exceptional value. And the fourth one is we are seeing a clear trend towards integration and openness between organizations. So the old adversarial relationships between clients and suppliers are giving way to strategic partnerships and collaborative approach. And finally, the growth of the service sector has transformed how we think about project deliverables. So you are often delivering experiences and ongoing relationships, not just physical products. Okay? So these factors do not operate in isolation. So they interact and compound, creating the complex project landscape that you will be managing. Okay, so now let us break down what we mean by competitive and complex. Okay, so in today's project environment, first, the competitive aspect. So it means that projects no longer operate in isolation. So they take place in markets where multiple organizations are competing for the same customers, contracts, and resources. So this creates enormous pressure on your project team. So you can't just deliver what was originally specified. You must focus on innovation, efficiency, and delivering superior value to stay ahead of the competition. So think about it. While you are developing your project, your competitors are doing the same thing, possibly even faster, cheaper, or with better features. So this competitive reality fundamentally changes how you must approach your project management. Okay? So now let's go to the complexity dimension. So modern projects involve many interconnected parts, such as the stakeholders with different agendas, rapidly evolving technologies, changing regulations, and multiple competing goals. So these elements do not exist independently. Okay, so they interact in ways that can be difficult to predict. So this complexity requires what we call careful planning and adaptability. So you need robust planning frameworks in order to understand these interconnections, but you also need the flexibility to adapt when these complex systems behave in unexpected ways. So the combination of competitive pressure and systematic complexity is what makes modern project management both challenging and fascinating. So it is why we need sophisticated frameworks and tools in order for our project management to succeed. Okay? So in your mind, you might be probably asking, so how do we address these competitive and complex challenges? So the answer actually lies in two critical elements. The first one is of course with proper structure and robust frameworks. So first, structure is absolutely essential. Okay? So you have to remember that you need a clear team setup with one main leader who has the overall accountability, supported by different specialized teams for each major function. Now remember, without this clarity, complex projects quickly devolve into chaos with unclear responsibilities and poor coordination. Okay? So second, you of course need a comprehensive framework. So it means you need to have a step-by-step plan for each team that show how they interconnect and support the overall project goals. So let me give you a concrete example. Okay? Now, when McDonald's opens a new store, they do not just wing it. They have one project head who leads the entire store opening process. Okay? So under this project leader, they organize distinct teams with specific responsibilities. So a construction team that handles the store build out, an HR team who manages hiring and staffing, a training team which focuses on teaching new workers McDonald's systems and procedures, and of course, a kitchen team that ensures food preparation setup that meets their standards. Okay? So have you noticed how each team has a clear focused role, but they all report to one central leader who coordinates their efforts and ensures they work together seamlessly. So this structure manages the complexity by breaking it into manageable pieces, while the central leadership maintains competitive focus and timeline pressure. So this is project management structure in action. Okay? So organized, coordinated, and effective. Okay, so let's talk about why time has become such a critical competitive weapon in project management. So, in today's fast paced business environment, time isn't just about meeting deadlines. Okay, remember that. Time isn't just about meeting deadlines. So, it is about gaining strategic advantage, delivering results faster than your competitors can be a major differentiation. Okay? So you have to deliver, when you deliver results faster than your competitors, it gives a major differentiation. It is a major differentiator. So particularly in industries where being first to market truly matters. Okay? So let's think about the technology sector. Whether it's Apple launching a new iPhone or a startup releasing an innovative app. So the first company to market often captures the largest market share and sets the industry standard, right? So in fashion, being first with the latest trends can mean the difference between success and obsolescence. But here is the key insight. Managing timelines efficiently doesn't just give you speed, okay? It actually creates a cascade of additional benefits. When you deliver faster, you typically reduce costs because you are using resources more efficiently and avoiding the expense of extended project timelines. More importantly, faster delivery often leads to greater customer satisfaction, and customers appreciate when you deliver ahead of schedule or beat competitor timelines. So, of course, having that said, this builds trust and loyalty that will greatly extend far beyond the individual project. So, when we talk about time as competitive advantage, we are really talking about a multiplier effect. So, we are talking about speed creates cost savings, customer satisfaction, market possession, and competitive differentiation all at once. So, this is why mastering time management techniques is very essential for modern project managers. So, how do we practically harness time as a competitive advantage? It requires specific structural and framework approaches. Okay. Now, for structure, you really need timeline charts that will clearly show what needs to be accomplished each week. So, this isn't just about handling your deadlines, it is about creating a visual roadmap that keeps everyone aligned and focused on time, critical milestones. So, for framework, you need daily progress checks. So this means establishing regular touch points to monitor advancement, identify potential delays early, and make real-time adjustments for you to stay on track. And well, let me show you how this works with a real example. Let's go back to our example with McDonald's, okay? So McDonald's needs to open a new location before the Christmas rush. So a hard, non-negotiable deadline driven by seasonal revenue opportunities. So their timeline breaks down like this, okay? Weeks 1 to 2 focus on store construction. So this is the foundation that everything else depends on. Week 3 is for equipment installation. So you cannot do this until construction is complete, right? Then week 4, it covers staff hiring, timed for perfectly so new employees start when the store is ready for them. And then the week 5 is intensive training. So ensuring that the staff are competent before opening. And finally, we go to week 6. It is actually their soft opening, a controlled launch before the busy season hits. So now, notice how each week builds on the previous one, right? With daily check-ins, ensuring nothing falls behind, this systematic approach transforms time from a constraint into a competitive weapon by ensuring predictable, efficient delivery. Okay, so the third major shift in today's project environment is increased customer focus. So this actually represents a fundamental change in how we approach project design and delivery. So modern projects are increasingly designed with the customer at the center of every decision. So it is no longer enough to simply deliver what was specified in the original contract. So today's customers expect the final deliverable to truly meet their needs and exceed their expectations. So this customer-centric approach involves three critical elements. The first one is understanding customer preferences. So you need to deeply comprehend not just what customers say they want, but what they actually need and what they value. So this often requires ongoing research and stakeholder engagement throughout the project lifecycle. Then the second is actively addressing feedback. Okay, so customer input cannot be something you collect and file away. It must be integrated into your project processes and decision making in real time. So this actually means building feedback loops and response mechanisms into your project structure. And third is ensuring quality that goes beyond basic specifications. So quality today means delivering value that customers recognize and appreciate, not just meeting technical requirements. Remember that? Well, why does this matter? Well, it matters because customer focus helps build trust and loyalty that extends far beyond the individual project. So satisfied customers become repeat clients, provide referrals, and give you competitive advantages in future opportunities. Well, in essence, customer focus transforms individual projects into long-term business relationships. Okay, so how do we practically implement increased customer focus in our projects? So it requires building systematic approaches to capture and respond to customer input. So for structure, you need a customer feedback system. That is very important, not just a suggestion box, okay? Because the suggestion box is commonly done by businesses, right? But a comprehensive mechanism to continuously gather, analyze, and act on customer insights throughout your project lifecycle. So for framework, you need regular customer surveys. So this actually means establishing consistent touch points to measure customer satisfaction, identify emerging needs, and track how well you are meeting expectations. Now let us see how McDonald's applies this before opening a new location. Okay? Well, they don't just assume they know what customers want. They actively research and plan based on real customer data. First, they ask mall visitors what they want. The direct input helps them understand local preferences and expectations before they even start construction. And second, they check the most ordered items in nearby McDonald's branches. So this data-driven approach reveals actual customer behavior patterns and not just stated preferences. The third is they plan seating based on usual customer groups, family such as families, students, business people, and so on. So they are actually designing the physical space around how customers actually use it. So have you noticed how each step puts the customer at the center of project decisions? So this isn't just good customer service. It is a strategic project planning that reduces risks and increases the likelihood of long-term success by ensuring the final deliverable actually matches your customer needs. Okay, so the fourth major trend reshaping project management is the move towards integration and openness. So this actually represents a fundamental shift from the traditional siloed approaches to collaborative, transparent project delivery. Now, modern projects increasingly require collaboration across departments, teams, and sometimes even external partners. So you can no longer succeed by just working in isolation. Okay? In today's complex projects demand coordinative effort, coordinated effort across multiple stakeholders with different expertise, resources, and perspectives. Now, integration and openness mean breaking down silos that traditionally separated different parts of organizations. So instead of departments working independently and only sharing final results, successful projects now require improved communication and cohesive teamwork throughout the entire project lifecycle. But there's there is another crucial element here. Okay? Sorry. So this is about the transparency in processes and decision making. So this isn't just about being nice or building relationships. So this transparency actually helps reduce inefficiencies by eliminating duplicate work, reducing miscommunication, and enabling faster problem solving. So always remember that when your team members understand how decisions are made and have visibility into other parts of the project, they will coordinate better. Okay, so that's the hint. Now, the next one is this trend toward integration and openness actually reflects a broader recognition that complex modern projects simply cannot be delivered successfully through traditional hierarchical, compartmentalized approaches. Okay? So, I want you to remember this. Collaboration isn't just preferred, it is essential for project success. So, how do we practically achieve integration and openness? It requires building connected systems and comprehensive linking frameworks. So, for structure, you need connected systems, technological and process infrastructure that enables seamless information flow between different parts of your project. So, without this connectivity, integration remains just a nice idea rather than a practical reality. So for framework, you need plans for linking everything together. So this actually means designing how different components, teams, and processes will interact and share information throughout the project lifecycle. So again, let's go back to our McDonald's example. So let's see how McDonald's implements this integration approach. Okay, so McDonald's actually ensure that all parts of their operation work together seamlessly through systematic connectivity. So the cash registers connect directly to kitchen screens when an order is placed. The kitchen immediately knows what to prepare, so there must be no delays and no miscommunication. Now, the kitchen screens connect to inventory systems. As items are prepared, inventory is automatically updated, ensuring they never run out of key ingredients without warning. And inventory connects to the ordering system. When stock levels drop below certain thresholds, reorder processes are triggered automatically. So all of these systems connect back to McDonald's main office, providing real-time visibility into operations, sales, and performance metrics. So you see, this is very amazing. The technology of McDonald's is really systematic, is really centralized. Okay? So having this kind of technology, McDonald's ensures that they will not be running out of stock. So not running out of stock means that they will be able to serve immediately and faster the demands of their customers. So this isn't just about technology. It is about creating an integrated ecosystem where information flows smoothly, decisions can be made quickly, and problems are identified before they become critical issues. So this integration eliminates inefficiencies and enables superior project performance. Okay, so the final major trend we need to understand is the growth of the service sector and how it's fundamentally changing project management. Now, in many economies, the service sector, this includes the IT, the healthcare, and consulting or consultancy. Okay? So it is growing much faster than the traditional industries like manufacturing. So this isn't just an economic shift. It is transforming how we think about project deliverables and success. Now, this shift means projects increasingly focus on intangible outcomes. So instead of delivering physical products you can touch and measure, you are often delivering customer experiences, software solutions, or knowledge-based services. So these intangible deliverables are harder to define, measure, and manage using traditional project management approaches. So these actually requires new methods and tools specifically designed for service-oriented project management, the frameworks that work well for building a bridge or manufacturing a car really doesn't necessarily translate effectively to implementing a customer service system or developing a consulting solution. So in order to address this one, we need different structural approaches, such as service training systems that becomes critical because your project success often depends on how well people deliver the service. not just whether a physical product meets specifications. So we also need frameworks built around customer service standards rather than just technical specifications. So success in service projects is often measured by customer satisfaction, user experience, and long-term relationship quality rather than simple compliance with initial requirements. So this evolution actually requires us to expand our project management toolkit in order for us to handle these service-focused realities. So, how do we practically address the challenges of service sector project management? Okay, that's a question. Well, it actually requires specific structures and frameworks designed for service delivery. So, for structure, you need a comprehensive service training system. Unlike manufacturing projects, where quality is built into the product. So, service quality depends entirely on how well your people perform. So, this makes training a critical project management and not just an afterthought. Okay? So now for framework, you need customer service standards that define exactly what good service looks like in measurable terms. So these standards become your project specifications for intangible deliverables. Now let me show you how this works with a real example. Okay? The training staff for service excellence. So this isn't generic customer service training. Okay, what we're talking here is project specific preparation that directly impacts your deliverable quality. So, staff need to learn how to greet customers, that's very important. This creates the first impression and sets expectations for the entire service experience. So, they must know how to handle complaints effectively because in service projects, problems will arise, okay? And how you handle them often determines project success more than uh, more than avoiding them entirely. So quick service delivery is essential. Customers judge service projects heavily on responsiveness and efficiency, and maintaining cleanliness becomes a visible quality standard. In service environments, what customers see directly reflects on your project's professional quality. So have you noticed how each element directly impacts the customer's perception of your project deliverable? Well, always remember in service projects, training is not just about preparation. It is actually building your final project. Okay? Okay. So now, let us introduce our first major framework, the 5 C's model. So this is a simple but powerful way to look at what can affect a project and how to handle it systematically. So the 5 C's stand for 5 critical dimensions that you must consider in every project. So first is the context, the external general influences on your organization and project environment. Then the second is complexity. This is the level of difficulty or complication in your specific project. The third is completeness. It is how much of the end requirement your project will actually deliver. The fourth is competitiveness. It tells us how many other organizations are competing to deliver similar work, which actually affects your approach and priorities. Fifth is customer focus. So this is the expectation that customers will have their needs genuinely met by your project outcomes. So here's why this model is so valuable. it helps teams systematically consider both external and internal factors to ensure the project is well planned and successful. And too often, project teams focus only on internal technical requirements while ignoring the broader context that can make or break their efforts. So, always remember that by working through each of the five C's, you force yourself to think holistically about your project environment. So you consider not just what you are building, but the competitive landscape, the complexity challenges, the completeness expectations, and the customer context that will ultimately determine success. So, this comprehensive perspective is essential for modern project management, where external factors often matter more than internal execution. Okay, so let us dive deeper into the first three C's to understand how they guide your project analysis. Okay, so context is about understanding what is happening outside your project that might impact it. So you need to ask, are there new laws being passed that could affect your work? What market trends might influence your project's relevance? Are there social changes that could impact how customers receive your deliverable? Context forces you, um, context, well, the context forces you to look beyond your project boundaries in order for you to understand the external environment you are operating in. Now let's go to complexity. Complexity looks at how difficult the project actually is. So this is not just about the size. It's about interconnections and moving parts. So does your project have many different teams that need to coordinate? Are there tricky technical tasks that could create bottlenecks? The more complicated your project is, the more careful planning it needs. So simple projects can succeed with basic management. But remember, complex projects require sophisticated frameworks and risk management. And then the next one is completeness. Completeness is about how much of the project goal is being achieved. So this is critical for setting proper expectations. Are you delivering everything the customer asks for or just a part of it? If you are only delivering a partial solution, everyone needs to understand that upfront. So this helps set realistic expectations and prevents disappointment when stakeholders realize they're not getting a complete solution. So these three C's work together to give you a comprehensive understanding of your project scopes and challenges. Okay, so now let us complete the 5 C's model with the final two elements. Okay, the final two are competitiveness and customer focus. Now, competitiveness actually focuses on how your project compares to others in the marketplace. So this is a critical reality check that many project teams actually overlook. So you need to ask, are there other teams or companies trying to do something similar? What makes your project stand from other alternatives? What makes your project stand stand out from alternatives? So this isn't just about being different, okay? Always remember that. It is about understanding your competitive position and ensuring your project delivers distinctive value that customers will choose over other options. Now, think about it this way. Even if you deliver a technically perfect project, if competitors offer something better, faster, cheaper, or even cheaper, then your project may still fall in the marketplace. Competitiveness forces you to benchmark your approach and outcomes against real alternatives. So, customer focus means keeping the customer's needs and wants at the center of everything you do. So, this means going beyond just meeting expectations, going beyond just meeting specifications. You need to ask whether you are actually solving their problem or giving them something valuable. Are you delivering what they really need or just what was written in the original requirements? So it means you really have to go beyond, okay? So customer focus requires ongoing engagement and validation throughout the project lifecycle. So it is not enough to gather requirements at the beginning and then disappear until delivery. You need to continuously ensure your project remains aligned with what customers actually value and need. So together, these 5 C's that we have discussed provide a comprehensive framework for understanding and managing your project's environment and requirements. Okay? Okay. So our second major framework is the PESTEL analysis. This is simple but very powerful tool that will help you understand the external factors that might actually affect your project or your business. Okay? So PESTEL is an acronym that stands for 6 categories of external influences you need to consider. Unlike internal project factors that you can directly control. So like your team, budget, or timeline, these are external forces that you must understand and adapt to but actually cannot change. So what makes PESTEL so valuable is its systematic approach to external analysis rather than trying to think of everything that might impact your project in a random way. So PESTEL gives you 6 specific categories to examine methodically. So this ensures you do not miss critical external factors that could derail your project. So think of PESTEL as your early warning system. Okay, so we are being proactive. By analyzing these external factors at the beginning of your project, you can anticipate challenges, identify opportunities, and even build appropriate responses into your project plan. So it is much better to identify a potential regulatory change or economic shift during planning than to be surprised by it during the mid-project. So the beauty of PESTEL is its simplicity. It is easy to remember and apply, yet comprehensive enough to capture the major external influences that affect most projects. So this makes it an essential tool for project managers who need to understand their operating environment quickly and thoroughly. So let us look at what each letter represents. Okay, so let us break down first the first 2 elements of PESTEL analysis. The first 2 elements are political and economic factors. So the P stands for political factors. So this is about government rules or policies that might help or hurt your project. So you need to think about potential challenges in legislation, new taxes that could impact your budget, or new laws that might affect how you operate. So political stability in your area is also crucial. Political uncertainty can disrupt supply chains, change regulations, or even affect stakeholder confidence in your project. So let's say, for example, if you are managing a construction project, New building codes or environmental regulations could significantly impact your timeline and costs. If you're developing a well, technology project, data privacy laws or cybersecurity regulations might actually require additional compliance measures that you have not or you had not originally planned for. Okay? So let's go for E. E stands for economic factors. So this is fundamentally about money and the broader economy. You need to ask, are people spending money right now? Or are they being cautious due to economic uncertainty? Are prices going up for materials or services you need? Will inflation or changing interest rates make your project more expensive than originally budgeted? So economic factors can dramatically affect project feasibility. So during economic downturns, customers may delay purchases, suppliers may increase prices, or your organization may face budget cuts. Conversely, during economic growth, you might face resource shortages as demand increases across all industries. So these first two pestle factors help you understand the political and economic landscape your project must navigate. Okay, so now let us examine the social and technological factors in PESTEL analysis. So S stands for social factors. This is about understanding the trends, the behaviors of the people that could impact your project. So you need to ask, what do people care about right now? How are social attitudes and preferences changing? For example, if people increasingly care about being eco-friendly, you might need to focus on sustainability in your project design, materials, or processes. Social factors can completely reshape project requirements. Think about how social media has changed communication expectations, or how health consciousness has transformed food industry projects, or how remote work trends have altered office space projects. So these aren't just nice to know trends, they directly impact what customers want and expect from your deliverables. So the T stands for technological factors. So this looks at technology changes that could create opportunities or threats for your project. So you need to understand how there are new tools or technologies you can use to improve your project delivery. Conversely, are there emerging technologies that might make your current project approach outdated before you even finish? So technology actually moves fast, right? And it can make projects obsolete quickly. That's the reality. So for instance, mobile technology revolutionized software development projects, automation is actually changing manufacturing projects, right? So you need to stay aware of technological shifts that could either enhance your project capabilities or threaten your project's relevance. So these factors help you understand the social and technological environment shaping your project's context. Okay, so let us now complete the analysis with the final two factors. So the final two are the environmental and the legal. So E stands for environmental factors. So this is about nature and environment, okay? And it is becoming increasingly important in modern project management. You need to think about concerns related to pollution, climate change, or environmental regulations that might impact your work. Are there sustainability requirements you need to meet? And environmental impact assessments you need to complete? carbon footprint considerations that could affect your project design? So those are the questions, okay? Now for environmental factors, always remember that environmental factors are not just about compliance anymore. They are often competitive advantages. Customers, investors, and regulators increasingly expect projects to demonstrate environmental responsibility. So this might mean using sustainable materials, minimizing waste, reducing energy consumption, or planning for long-term environmental impact. So L stands for legal factors. These are the laws and regulations you absolutely must follow. So this includes labor laws that affect how you manage your team, safety rules that determine your work procedures, and intellectual property rights that could impact what you can and cannot do in your project. So legal factors are non-negotiable. Violations can shut down projects, create liability, or result in insignificant penalties. So what always remember that you really need to identify relevant legal requirements early and build compliance into your project plan. So meaning you really have to be very proactive, okay? So this might include permits, licenses, certifications, or specific procedural requirements that will add time and cost to your project. So together, all of these six PESTEL factors give you a comprehensive view of the external environment that your project must navigate successfully. Okay, so once you have completed your PESTEL analysis, you can actually use those insights to develop a strategic responses using the TOS matrix. So the TOS stands for threats, opportunities, weaknesses, and strengths. So it is actually a SWOT analysis applied strategically. Now, the matrix creates four strategic approaches based on combining your internal capabilities with your external factors from your PESTEL analysis. So, strengths or opportunities asks, what opportunities match our strengths? What resources can we use to take advantage of favorable external conditions? This is your ideal scenario, leveraging what you do well to capitalize on external opportunities. So the strengths or weakness, it actually considers using what using what from can we limit campaign damage? What responses can we use to win? How can our strengths help us dodge the threats? This is about using your capabilities defensively to protect against external challenges. Now let's go to weaknesses or opportunities or weaknesses versus your opportunities. It is it explores what factors might make our weaknesses less relevant. What opportunities are we too weak to pursue right now but should strengthen ourselves to capture? So this actually identifies areas where you need to improve in order for you to seize opportunities. Okay? Now let's go to weaknesses versus threats. So it examines what threats are directly at our weak points. How can we make these points stronger? How can we minimize these threats? This is your most valuable position where external threats meet internal weaknesses. So this matrix actually transforms your PESTEL analysis from just understanding external factors into actionable strategic responses that account for both your capabilities and your environment. Okay, so our third major framework is the 7S framework. So this is a comprehensive tool that helps organizations ensure all aspects of a project are aligned and working together effectively. So the 7S framework is used to evaluate and improve project performance by analyzing how different project components interact with each other. So this is not just a checklist of things to consider, it is about understanding the relationships and dependencies between different elements of your project. So what makes this framework particularly powerful is that it is divided into two complementary groups. So the first group consists of the hard elements. So these are more visible and concrete aspects of your project that you can directly observe and measure. So think of things like organizational structure, systems, and processes that you can document and track. So the second group focuses on soft elements. So these are centered on people and culture. These are often less visible but equally important factors like team dynamics, leadership style, shared values, or organizational culture. So the genius of the 7S framework is recognizing that both hard and soft elements must be aligned for project success. Now you can have perfect systems and clear structures, but if your team culture is dysfunctional or your leadership style doesn't match your project needs, then of course you will still struggle. So conversely, great teamwork cannot overcome fundamentally flawed systems or unclear structures. This framework forces you to consider both the technical and human dimensions of project management, ensuring nothing critical gets overlooked. Okay, so now let us examine each of the 7S elements in detail in order to understand how they work together. Okay, so let's go for the first one, strategy. Well, strategy, it refers to the high-level requirements of the project and the means to achieve them. Okay, so again, I repeat, it refers to the high-level requirements of the project and the needs to achieve them. So this isn't just your project plan. It is your overarching approach and priorities that guide all other decisions. The second S is the structure. It is actually the organizational arrangement that will be used to carry out the project. How are teams organized? Who reports to whom? What are the communication lines and decision-making hierarchies? The third S is the systems. These are the methods for work to be designed, monitored, and controlled. So these are your processes, your procedures, and workflows that ensure consistent quality delivery. The next one is the staff. So it covers the selection, recruitment, management, and leadership of those working on the project. So this is about having the right people in the right roles with proper leadership. The next one is the skills. It represents the managerial and technical tools available to the project manager and the staff, and how these are developed. Do people have the capabilities needed for success? Then the next one is the style or culture. So this is the underlying way of working and interrelating within the work team or the organization. So this soft factor often determines whether other elements actually work in practice. Stakeholders are individuals and groups with an interest in the project process or an outcome. So managing these relationships is actually very crucial for project acceptance and success. So the power of this framework is that all 7 elements must be aligned. Weaknesses is any one area can undermine the entire project, regardless of how strong the other elements are. Okay, so always remember that all of these areas must be considered, because if one area has been weak, So it can really undermine or it can really affect your entire project. Okay, so now let us discuss how to compare and align each of the 7 elements, starting with the concept of shared values, which sits at the center of the entire framework. So shared values represent the project's core purpose and relate directly to the project's mission, vision, and overall goals. So think of this as the foundation that all other elements must align with. So in project management, shared values serve as your North Star, okay? So you need to ensure that the project's objectives align with the organization's core values and goals. So in your company study, this must be checked and considered thoroughly and carefully, okay? That your project will be aligned to the company's core values and goals. This is not just about compliance, okay? It is about creating genuine alignment that will motivate team and stakeholders. So let me give you a concrete example. If your organization's core value is about sustainability, then your project should prioritize eco-friendly practices. So this is not just a nice addition, it should influence every other element of the 7S framework. So your strategy should incorporate sustainability goals, your systems should measure environmental impact, your staff should be trained in sustainable practices, and your stakeholders should include environmental considerations. Okay? So, when shared values are clearly defined and consistently applied, they create coherence across all 7 elements. So, every decision can be tested against these core values. Like, does these structures support our values? Do these systems reinforce what we believe in? Are we hiring staff who share these values? This alignment actually creates powerful synergy where all elements reinforce each other rather than working at cross purposes. So it is what transforms a collection of project activities into a cohesive pers- purposeful efforts. Okay, so the second element is the strategy. So this actually represents your project plan and the overall approach to achieving your project's goals. So strategy relates directly to how you are going to accomplish what you have set out to do. This isn't just a list of tasks. It is your fundamental approach and methodology for delivering success. So in project management, you really need to define a clear project strategy that includes several key components. So the first is scope. Exactly what will. So first, scope. Exactly what will and won't be included in your project. Second is the deliverables, the specific outputs you'll need to produce. Third is the timelines, when things will be complicated. And fourth, resources, what people, money, and tools you will need. So, but strategy goes deeper than just this logistics, okay? Remember that. It is about choosing your fundamental approach. Let me give you an example. A strategy for an IT project might include adopting agile methodologies to improve flexibility and speed. This is not just a technical decision. It is a strategic choice that will influence how you structure your teams, what skills you need, how you communicate with stakeholders, and what systems you use for tracking progress. So you must uh, so your strategy must align with your shared values and create a coherent framework for all other elements. So if your strategy emphasizes the speed and flexibility, then your structure needs to support rapid decision making. Your staff needs to be comfortable with change, and your systems need to enable quick iterations. So remember that strategy is the bridge between your core purpose and your practical execution. So the third element is the structure, which focuses on the project team setup and how you organize people in order for you to accomplish your strategy. So structure relates to the organization of your project team and the definition of roles within the team. So this is about creating clarity around who does what, who supports to whom, and how decisions flow through your project. So in project management, you really need to clearly define roles, responsibilities, and reporting lines within the team. Without this clarity, you get confusion, duplicated effort, and gaps where important work doesn't get done. So people need to understand not just their own role, but they fit into the larger team structure. So for an example, a large construction project, okay, you might create sub-teams for designs, procurement and construction, each with clear leadership. So the design team handles the architectural and engineering work. The procurement team manages materials and supplier relationships, and the construction team focuses on actual building activities. So you have to notice how this structure actually aligns with the strategic needs of the project. So construction projects require specialized expertise in different areas. So the structure reflects the reality. So each sub-team has clear leadership to ensure accountability and coordination. So your structure must support your strategy. Now, if your strategy requires rapid decision making, then you need a flat structure with short communication lines. Okay? So, if your strategy requires deep expertise, you need specialized teams with clear domains of responsibility. So, always remember that structure translates strategy into practical working arrangements. Okay, so the fourth element is the systems. So it covers the tools and processes that will enable your project to function effectively. So systems relate to the processes, tools, and technology that you're going to use to manage the project. Well, you think of this as the operational backbone that makes everything else possible. Without good systems, even the best strategy and structure will struggle. Now, in project management, you need efficient systems for four critical areas. The first one is with your communication, how information flows between team members and stakeholders. The second one is task tracking, how you monitor what's been completed and what is coming up. The third one is budgeting. So it is how you track your expenses and financial performance. And the fourth one is the quality control. It is how you ensure deliverables meet standards. So for example, you might use project management software like Jira or the Microsoft Project, let's say for example the most common one, Microsoft Project, to streamline workflows and monitor progress. So these, always remember that these are not just nice to have tools, but they are essential elements that enable coordination across complex projects with multiple parts. So good systems create efficiency and visibility. They automate routine tasks, provide real-time status updates, and ensure nothing falls through the cracks. So more importantly, they free up your team to focus on high-value work rather than administrative overhead. So your systems must align with your strategy and structure. So if your strategy emphasizes collaboration, you need systems that facilitate easy information sharing. So if your structure involves remote teams, you need systems that work across different locations and time zones. Systems transform your organizational structure into a functional, coordinated project team. Okay, so let's go with the fifth element, which is skills. which focuses on the team's competencies and their ability to execute your project successfully. So skills relate to the abilities and expertise of your project team. So this is not just about having warm bodies filling roles. It is about ensuring you have the right capabilities to handle what you are promised. So in project management, you must ensure the team has the right skills to deliver projects successfully and provide training if needed. So this actually requires honest assessment of current capabilities versus the required capabilities and a plan to close any gaps. So skills assessment should happen early in your project planning. Okay? So you need to identify what technical skills, management skills, and domain expertise will be required, then evaluate whether your current team possesses these capabilities. So if there are gaps, you have three options. The first one is either you hire people with the needed skills. The next one is either you train existing team members or you bring in external expertise. So let me give you an example. So for a software development project, you need to ensure the team is skilled in relevant programming languages, right? And agile practices. So if your team knows traditional programming but has never used agile methodologies, then you really need to provide training or coaching to ensure that they can work effectively within your chosen project approach. So skills must align with your strategy and systems. So if your strategy involves cutting-edge technology, your team needs current technical skills. If your system requires specific software expertise, your team needs to be competent with those tools. Now, skills are what transform your organizational structure and systems into actual project capability. Okay, so the sixth element is staff. So this focuses on the people in your project, including their motivation and roles. Staff relates to the actual people involved in the project and considering not just their capabilities, but also their motivation, engagement, and how they fit into specific roles. So this actually goes beyond skills in order to consider the human dimension of project success. So in project management, you need to assign the right people to the right tasks, ensuring a proper mix of skills and experience. Well, this is not just about matching technical capabilities to requirements. It is about understanding people's strengths, interests, and working styles, then creating assignments that will really maximize both individual performance and team effectiveness. So people perform best when their assignments align with their strengths and interests. So someone who's technically capable but unmotivated will underperform compared to someone who is engaged and excited about their work. So, for example, in a marketing project, you should assign creative tasks to designers who thrive on innovation and visual problem solving, while analytical tasks should go to data specialists who enjoy working with members and insights. So this isn't just about who can do the work. It is about who will do the work most effectively and enthusiastically. Staff consideration must align with your strategy and with your structure and strategy. Now, if your strategy requires innovation, you need creative, risk-taking people. If your structure involves cross-functional teams, then you need people who collaborate well across disciplines. So the right people in the right roles can overcome system deficiencies, while the wrong people can undermine even perfect processes. So the seventh and the final element is the style. So this focuses on the leadership and collaboration within your project team. So style actually relates to the leadership approach and team dynamics in the project. This is about how people interact, make decisions, and work together. The cultural aspects that often determine whether projects succeed or fail. In project management, you need to adopt a leadership style that matches your project's specific needs and foster a positive team culture that will encourage collaboration. So there is no one size fits all approach here. Different projects require different leadership styles. So your leadership style should align with your project context and your team composition. A crisis project might require directive leadership to make quick decisions, while a research project might benefit from more collaborative approach that encourages experimentation and input from all team members. So for example, in an innovative project where you need creative solutions and breakthrough thinking, you should use a participative leadership style that will encourage creative input from the team. So this means creating psychological safety where people feel comfortable sharing unconventional ideas, facilitating brainstorming sessions, and ensuring all voices are heard. So style must reinforce all other elements of the framework. If your strategy emphasizes innovation, then your leadership style should encourage risk taking. So if your structure involves cross-functional teams, your style should facilitate collaboration across different disciplines and perspectives. So style is often the element that brings everything else together. It is the human glue that makes all the other elements work efficiently. Ah, I mean, it's the human glue that makes all other elements work effectively in practice. Okay, so now let's go to our fourth major framework, which is the ICOM model. So this is a tool that breaks down the key elements of any project into four essential components. So the ICOM stands for inputs, constraints, outputs, and mechanisms. So this model provides a systematic way to analyze what goes into your project, what comes out of it, what limits your options, and what resources you need to make the transformation happen. So let me explain each element briefly. So inputs are what you start with. So these are the raw materials, the information, the requirements, or problems that trigger your project. Constraints are the limitations you must work within. So things like the budget, the time, the regulations, or quality standards that bound your solution space. Then, next is the output. The outputs are what you actually deliver. This is the final product or the final service or actually the result that will satisfy the original need. And next is the mechanisms or the resources that make the transformation possible. So these are your people, your tools, your technologies, and processes that convert inputs into outputs. So this model actually helps project managers visualize how all parts of a project fit together in order to deliver successful results instead of thinking about project as a series of disconnected tasks. So ICOM forces you to see projects as transformation systems that everything that transformation systems where everything is interconnected. So the power of ICOM is its simplicity and completeness. By systematically considering these four elements, you ensure you have not overlooked critical aspects of your project. So it is particularly useful during project planning in order for you to verify you have all necessary components identified and aligned. So ICOM provides a clear, logical framework for understanding project dynamics and dependencies. Okay, so now let us examine each component of the ICOM model in detail to understand how they work together. Okay, so again, inputs represents where you start. So a need or what that triggers your project. For example, we need an app represents a business requirement or customer demand that initiates the project process. Inputs can be problems to solve, opportunities to pursue, or requirements to fulfill. So I'll just repeat, okay, so that you really understand it better. Mechanisms are the resources you use to create the solution. So this includes your people, such as the developers who write the code, tools such as project management software that help coordinate work, and other resources like equipment or expertise. So mechanisms are what enable the transformation from input to output. Constraints define the boundaries you must work within. Time, budget, and quality restrictions. So for example, finish in 6 months, stay under budget, and deliver with no bugs. So these are not just suggestions, they are firm limitations that shape how you approach the project and what solutions are feasible. So outputs are what you deliver. So this is your final product or service that satisfies the original need. So for example, this would be a functional app that meets the user requirements and business objectives. Now, notice how the diagram shows these elements interact. Inputs flow into the project process. Constraints limit your options from above. Mechanisms enable the work from below, and outputs flow out as the final result. So this model helps you ensure you have considered all essential elements and understand how they relate to each other in your specific project context. Okay, so our fifth and final framework is the 4D project cycle. Now, a model that divides a project into 4 key stages to ensure successful planning, execution, and improvement. Okay? So the 4D model recognizes the projects aren't just about doing the work. So they require systematic progression through distinctive phases, each with different objectives and activities. So let me walk you through the cycle. As well, I have discussed this in the very first, in this on the second slide of our presentation, like the 4 phases, which is D1. It is the defining stage. This is where you determine what the project is about, it, its reasons for existence, and what you need to accomplish. The output is the brief, a clear statement of project requirements and objectives. Now let's go to D2 phase. So this is your designing phase, where you construct detailed plans showing how the needs will be developed and delivered. You evaluate options, minimize risks, and create comprehensive project plans. And the output is the proposal or project initiation document that details your approach. Then D3 is the doing it stage. This is actually the execution phase where you carry out the project according to your plans. This is typically the longest phase in terms of time, resources, and the, the output for this is the actual deliverable or outcomes you promised. And the last phase is the develop it phase, or the D4. It is the improvement phase where you actually develop what happened, capture lessons learned, and improve processes for future projects. So this phase feeds back into future D1 phases, creating continuous improvement. Now notice the cyclical nature. each phase builds on the previous one, and the final phase connects back to inform future projects. This creates organizational learning and prevents repeating mistakes. Okay, so now let us examine what happens in each phase of the 4D project lifecycle. So by looking at the key issues and fundamental questions that drive each stage. So let's go first with the first phase, which is define the project. So it focuses on project and organizational strategy and goal definition. So the fundamental questions are, what is to be done? And why is it to be done? This phase establishes the foundation and justification for everything that follows. So design the project process actually involves modeling and planning, estimating resource requirements, conflict resolution, and justification of your approach. So the key questions become, how will it be done? Who will be involved in each part? When can it start and finish? So this phase translates the what into detailed how plans. So deliver the project, the do it phase focuses on organization, control, leadership, decision making, and problem solving. So the fundamental question shifts to, how should the project be managed on a day-to-day basis? So this is where plans meet reality and require active management. So develop the process involves assessment of both the process and outcomes of the project. So evaluation of what worked and what didn't, and implementing changes for the future. So the key question here is, how can the process be continually improved? Now, notice how each phase has has distinct focuses and questions. You can't effectively answer how will it be done until you clearly know what is to be done, right? Similarly, you cannot properly evaluate and improve until you have completed the delivery phase. So this sequential progression ensures thorough project development while building organizational capability for future projects. Okay, so now let us dive deeper into the first phase, which is the define it or the D1, in order to understand what actually happens during this critical starting phase. So what happens here? This is the starting phase where the project's purpose, objectives, and goals are clearly outlined. You are also ensuring strategic alignment with the organization's broader goals. So this is not just about having a good idea. It is about ensuring your project fits the organization's strategic direction and proper priorities. So the key questions you need to ask during this phase are fundamental but essential. So first, what needs to be done? This requires clear articulation of the problem, the opportunity, or requirement that is driving the project. Second, why does this project matter? So this forces you to establish the business case and justify why resources should be allocated to this particular initiative. So let me give you a concrete example. Now, a company decides to develop a new website. So during the define it phase, they would clearly articulate the purpose, perhaps to attract more customers or improve user experience. They would also establish specific objectives such as launching within 6 months, increasing online traffic by 30%, or improving conversion rates. So notice this phase establishes both the what and the why before moving to the how. Without this foundation, projects often drift, change direction unexpectedly, or fail to deliver meaningful value because the fundamental purpose was never clearly established. So this phase sets the trajectory for everything that follows. So get it right here and you have a solid foundation for success. Okay, so now let us examine the second phase, okay, which is the design it or the D2, where you actually transform your defined project into a detailed execution plan. So what happens here? So this is a detailed planning. This is where detailed planning is done, including resource allocation, task scheduling, and risk management. This is where you move from knowing what you want to accomplish to understanding exactly how you will accomplish it. You also create the project proposal or project initiation document, which is commonly called the PID, which acts as a comprehensive roadmap for your project. So the key questions shift from what and why to the practical how questions. So how will the project be executed? This requires breaking down your objectives into specific activities and processes. Who will be involved in each step? This means identifying team members, stakeholders, and their specific roles and responsibilities. So when can the project start and finish? This involves creating realistic timelines with dependencies and milestones. So let me continue with our website example a while ago. So for the new website project during the designing it phase, you would plan the content creation process, right? Technical development approach and marketing strategy. You would assign specific tasks to team members, perhaps content writers, handle copy, developers manage technical build, and marketing handles promotion. So you would also set clear deadlines for each phase and deliverable. So this phase creates the blueprint that guides all execution activities. So the more thorough your planning here, the smoother your execution will be. So this is where you anticipate problems, allocate resources, and create the detailed roadmap that transforms your vision into actionable steps. Okay, so now we move to the third phase. This is the do it or the D3 phase, where you are where your planning meets reality and the actual work gets done. Okay, so what happens here? This is actually the execution phase where the plan is put into action. Okay, so the project is managed daily, ensuring tasks are completed on time, within the budget, and according to quality expectations. So this is typically the longest phase in terms of duration, in terms of resources, your consumption, and it is where most of the visible work occurs. So the key question shifts to operational management. How should the project be managed on a day-to-day basis? This requires active leadership, continuous monitoring, problem solving when issues arise, and making real-time adjustments to keep the project on track. So you are no longer planning what should happen. You are managing what is happening. So continuing without our website example, no, sorry, continuing with our website example, the website is being built, right? So with developers actively coding the functionality, designers creating the visual elements, and content writers producing the text, each team member is working on their assigned tasks while you coordinate their efforts, track progress against deadlines, and resolve any issues that emerge. So this phase is where project management skills become critical. So you need to balance competing demands, manage resources efficiently, communicate progress to stakeholders, and maintain quality standards while meeting time and budget constraints. So the do it phase actually transforms your documented plans into tangible results. So it is where all the preparation from the previous phases pays off, but it also requires adaptive management as reality rarely matches plans perfectly. Okay, so finally, we reach the fourth phase, develop it, or the D4. This is actually often neglected, but critically very important improvement phase in the project implementation. So what happens here? After the project is completed, this phase actually focuses on reviewing the outcomes and learning from the process. So you systematically evaluate what worked well and what could be improved. Then suggest specific improvements for future projects. This isn't just a celebration of completion. It is an investment in organizational learning and capability building. So the key questions shift to reflection and improvement, like what went well and what could be improved. So this requires honest assessment of both successes and failures. How can the process be continuously improved? This means translating lessons learned into actionable changes for future projects. Okay? So let's complete our website example a while ago. After launching the website, now the team evaluates performance metrics such as site traffic, user engagement, and conversion rates. So they also assess the project process itself. Did the timeline work? Were resources allocated effectively? What communication issues were emerged? Based on this analysis, they suggest improvements for future projects, such as better coordination between teams or clearer communication protocols. So, this phase is very crucial for organizational maturity. So, without it, teams repeat the same mistakes on every project. With effective D4 processes, each project builds organizational capability and improves future performance. So the develop it phase closes the loop, feeding insights back into future define it phases. So creating a cycle of continuous improvement that elevates your entire project management capability. Okay, let me summarize why the 4D project lifecycle is so powerful and how it ensures project success through systematic progression. So the life cycle ensures that the project is first well defined from the start. You establish clear purpose, objectives, and strategic alignment before investing significant resources. So this prevents projects from drifting or losing focus midstream. Second, designed with a detailed plan, you create comprehensive roadmaps with resource allocation, timelines, and risk management before execution begins. Okay? So this preparation significantly increases your chance of successful delivery. And third, delivered effectively with strong execution. You have the management frameworks and daily oversight needed to transform plans into results while maintaining quality standards. And fourth, continuously improved based on feedback and results. So you capture lessons learned and build organizational capability for future projects, creating a cycle of improvement rather than repeating mistakes. So this systematic process helps avoid chaos and ensures the project stays on track while delivering high quality outcomes. So, without this structure, projects often suffer from unclear objectives, inadequate planning, poor execution, or missed learning opportunities. So, the 4D model recognizes that successful project management isn't just about doing the work. It is about systematic progression through distinct phases, each with specific objectives and outcomes that build toward overall success. So, together, these four phases create a complete project management system that maximizes your chances of delivering value while building organizational capability for the future. Okay, and that brings us to the end of today's session on structure and frameworks for project management. So let's do a recap quickly what we have covered. So first, we explored 5 powerful frameworks that will serve as your project management toolkit. Okay, the first one, we have covered the 5 C's model for understanding your project environment. The second one is the PESTEL analysis for examining external factors. The third one is the 7S framework for ensuring all project elements are aligned. The fourth one is the ICL model for visualizing project components. And the last one, of course, is the 4D project lifecycle for systematic project progression. Okay, so I will see you on the next section. And for the meantime, I want you to go back to the presentations and be familiar with your project management toolkit. So that's it. Thank you, and I'll see you on our next class. Bye. Have a great day.